Welcome back, everybody. The time is 1:15 and the inquiry is resumed.
Inspector, before we get in anywhere else in terms of the procedure, I'm sorry to say that I've got a bit of bad news to report that's afflicted one of the team members on our side, Mr. Ian Warner, who's our planning witness. Over the lunch break, I know this sounds sort of unbelievable, his father has collapsed and passed away literally in the last hour. We were in the middle of a meeting just after the adjournment that you called, and literally in the middle of the meeting, he looked at his phone and logged off. And I found out in the last 15 minutes that his father has passed away today. So I'm raising it now for sort of blindingly obvious reasons, because of all of the witnesses who, obviously to state the obvious, and I'll tell him that all of our thoughts, and he's told me to let the inquiry know what's happened, and obviously to apologise for not being here. Of all of the witnesses who I need for the next week and a half, he's absolutely prime amongst them, particularly for today, obviously with Miss James and all the rest of it. So the first thing, before I knew that he'd actually passed away, and so that will take him out of action, I think, for at least a week, maybe more. The first thing I was going to ask the local authority was just to confirm whether or not these sessions will be recorded, so are available for rewatching. So I'd just been assuming that Mr. Warner might be back later on this week. That was the first thing I was going to check, and that still might be an important thing to try and work out. That was before I knew that his father had passed away, and I think that means that the appellant's team needs to, and I need to take some instructions now on what on earth they want to do, because one way or another, I think the one thing I can confirm is it won't be Mr. Warner giving any evidence next week. What I need to check with them is whether or not there is anyone else. I mean, my goodness, it is not ideal to put it. I mean, it seems churlish to talk about, but anyway, it's not a good situation in any way, but I don't know whether there's anyone else who is available who they could put forward who could speak to his proof, or the only other alternative, and we would never suggest it other than in these most extreme and unfortunate circumstances, would be an adjournment of as short as possible, subject to everyone's availability. Absolute disaster, obviously, for everybody. In terms of trying to arrange diaries, and God knows, obviously we try and make it back as soon as we can. So the options are, I think, in terms of taking it forward, whether I would be content on behalf of the appellant, assuming that these sessions are recorded, I'd be content to ask Ms. James questions for the next 3 hours and do the cross-examination and get that far in the inquiry, and then take stock overnight. That's one route forward, as long as whoever the planning witnesses could then rewatch that session. However, you might decide that if there's actually a chance here of a proper adjournment, however, it might even be 2 or 3 months or more, because this is the way these things go. You might decide that in order not to break up, because we want a reasonable continuity of evidence at this inquiry, one way or the other, so that we all know what we're talking about and know what the arguments are about. And I think that there is an argument I can see, and so we'll see what Mr. Smythe thinks, that having one witness give planning evidence in January and the next one give planning evidence in April or whatever, if that's what happens, and I don't know yet, would be suboptimal, putting it mildly. It's not really a very, so what you might decide to do, given that we're not that far into the inquiry, we could bank the fact that we've heard from third parties, bank that we've heard from Ms. Jameson Chief, and obviously in the event of the need for an adjournment, on which I need to take instructions, and obviously we then need to make an application to you and etc. I've literally only just found out about this in the last 10 minutes, which is why I've not got any instructions yet. I'm just reading the inquiry. In the event of an adjournment, what we might be able to do then is not trespass too much further into the evidence. If we came back, we could offer Mr. Smythe and Mrs. James the opportunity to supplement or to refresh, if you like, all the things that Mrs. James has just been talking about. And then we could almost start again, That's another option. Okay. I'm constricted yeah, I'll stop talking now. So just let you see what your views are, and obviously Mr. Smythe and Dr. Keith as well.
I mean, firstly, I mean, please pass on my thoughts.
Of course, I will.
Yes, it's a very tragic thing to happen, and so yeah, unexpectedly.
I will.
I think we have to. I think initially, I'll turn in a moment to Mr. Smythe and Dr. Keith, but I think initially, shall we all take an adjournment now, just
Yes.
to get our thoughts around this and think about it properly?
Could I have half an hour at least?
Yeah.
It would be all right, because I think I might need a bit of time to talk to my clients.
Yeah. Should we say that very initially we just adjourn until 2 o'clock? We come back and then we talk about it properly.
Thank you.
But it does seem likely this is going to result in, significant changes to how we approach this, because it'd be the only fair way to do it.
I can only apologise, by the way, to Dr. Keith as well, who I know, and I know this isn't the Dr. Keith has made particular. We've all made. Everyone's arranged to be here, and I appreciate Mrs. James being here and all the council's team. Dr. Keith's made extra special sacrifices to be here, and she talked earlier on about patients who wouldn't be seen and all the rest of it. So, apologies. I mean,
it's exceptional circumstances, isn't it? But I think I would say, if we're going to completely rearrange the date, I really do need quite a significant time, because we've made huge efforts for me to have 2 weeks out of work for this, and to do it again. I mean, I can initially say I 100% cannot do it in school holiday time, which is when we have very significant staff shortages.
Okay.
So perhaps we can adjourn till 2 o'clock. If perhaps, though, both the council and Dr. Keith could think about their diaries in that adjournment, because it seems like it's likely that's where we're going, and perhaps we can have a useful conversation about that when we get back.
So could I just, before we do that, yes, please, that sounds very sensible. Would it be worth, in order to assist Dr. Keith, council, and indeed us, I don't know whether you've got it in front of you, whether you want to take some time and reflect, but are there any particular areas of cases that you've got blocking up your diary that would give us a feel as to when might or might not be doable if the need for an adjournment arose?
Yes. Let me look.
Yeah, that would be useful to know what sort of time frame we're talking.
Dates to avoid, kind of thing, or how soon, if we did need sort of 6 or 7 days, when your diary would work for it, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to load up I've got my own little internal notes on this, so I'll just do that now.
Thank you.
These things are always more complicated than you think. There's an inquiry in the first week of March, which is almost certainly being withdrawn, but until it actually is, I can't just assume it will, in case for some reason it doesn't. I would say, on the basis that I have to assume that isn't going to be withdrawn, to be safe.
Yeah.
Any time from the week commencing 21st of March, excluding May. May is very busy, so all of May, nothing.
Noted.
But otherwise, from 21st of March.
21st of March onwards. And
so I don't know if it's helpful to know now. So from the 24th of March, for 2.5 weeks, I am not in the country, and school holidays I'm just looking at our rota now to try and work out when that looks like it finishes.
That'd be helpful.
Is until the so we've got Easter weekend, which is the 18th of April, so that's still the school holidays.
Yes.
So 18th, 19th, I'm going to correlate with my diary just to check, but I think the schools go back on about the 20th of April. It's just we won't be able to get locum cover for me. Yeah, no. 20th of April. Basically, GP locums, we haven't found one for this 2-week period. So all my colleagues are covering, and in school holidays, I just can't ask people to cover for me. So we would sadly be looking after the 20th of April.
Okay. Okay. Right. It won't be easy. I'm sure that's before we get to the local authorities' availability.
Yeah. So Mr. Smythe, just in general, are you happy with this approach to take a short adjournment now and then come back and see where we finished? in terms of
Yes, if I could say two quick things for what it's worth. The council's commiserations are directed towards Mr. Warner. And secondly, sir, I can confirm that the proceedings are being recorded. So to the extent that makes any difference to Millennium Friends discussions, then.
Thank you for that compliment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think now we adjourn now until 2 o'clock so that you can go away, Mr. Simons, and seek instructions. And then when we come back, we can discuss how we move forward.
Grateful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. The inquiry is adjourned and resumes at 2 o'clock. Thank you.